everyone, I'm Georgia and this is The Sound of Georgia. Oh, I don't know how well you can see it, but I'm wearing my Practically Perfect in Every Way t-shirt. So today is the long-ish awaited Mary Poppins character study video. So today I'm going to be talking about everybody's favourite nanny. No, not you. Well, sort of. And how she's changed over the years. I'm going to try and do this in chronological order, but since I definitely did not make these notes in chronological order, it might not work as well as we'd want it to. But hopefully it shouldn't be too hard to understand. So the adaptations we're going to be looking at are the original book from 1934, the Disney film from 1964, and the sequel from 2018. Let's go. I would have liked to have been able to include the musical in this video, but since I only saw it once, and that was 7 years ago at the least, whenever it came to Australia, 2012 at the latest, and I can't remember that much off the top of my head, we won't be counting it. Besides, it's based off the Disney film just as much, if not more, than the original books, and since we're talking about both of those, I think we'll be covered. So if you've watched, say, Mr. Banks or know really anything about the behind the scenes making of Mary Poppins, you'll know that the film was Disneyfied quite a bit from the original books, and she's rather different. But here's the thing, having read the book, I'm not sure that's quite the case. Yes, Disney did Disneyfy her, but having read the book, she seemed, to me at least, a lot closer to the version we've come to know since 1964 than all the behind the scenes would have you believe. Though I'm sure P.L. Travers would strongly disagree. She is different in the book, don't get me wrong, but not as different as I expected. In fact, I would almost go so far as to say the bits where she's different from the Disney version, which come on has become the definitive version, are exactly that, bits. Now said bits can be very different, but I still think they're just tiny little moments for the most part. Like that time she and Jane and Michael go and visit the bird woman. Maybe the twins go along as well. Yes, they're twins in the books. So they're outside the cathedral with the bird woman and, I quote, "Another of them mistook Mary Poppins' new hat for a rose garden and pecked off a flower. 'You sparrer,' cried Mary Poppins and shook her umbrella at him. The pigeon, very offended, flew back to the bird woman and, to pay out of Mary Poppins, stuck the rose in the ribbon of the bird woman's hat. 'You ought to be in a pie, that's where you ought to be,' said Mary Poppins very angrily." End quote. I can't imagine Julie doing that at all. Can't imagine Emily doing that at all. In the books, Mary Poppins seems to be a lot more selfish in a sense. Like that chalk pavement scene, which doesn't have any penguins because, good God, why would it? Children aren't there this time. She just takes off by herself and goes into the picture with Bird, who is never seen again after that chapter. We also all know Mary Poppins is very full of herself, but in the book it's mentioned outright that she's vain. She loves shopping. It's also said, quote, "She knew very well that Mary Poppins never wasted time in being nice." Unquote. She's definitely a lot more stern than we see her in the later adaptations. Lots of scowling and scornful and other sharp stuff. Yay for alliterations. But that might just be because she doesn't seem to have as much of the warmth as she does in the films. She definitely seems more mysterious and, as always, she denies all the magical stuff. Just a lot more firmly than in the movies. But even then she's not completely heartless. Quote, "For they could see in Mary Poppins' eyes something that, if she were anybody else but Mary Poppins, might have been described as tears." Unquote. Also, and this doesn't quite relate to Mary Poppins as a character, but there are a couple of lines in the book when I was reading it that almost matched exactly with this book. My grandparents had this book and I loved it so much. We read it all the time. I think I may have even read it before I actually ever saw the movie. But as I was reading the book, some of the lines seemed eerily familiar, like almost word for word. And this book's based on the Disney film. So this is from the book, quote, Besides these, there was Katie Nana, who doesn't really deserve to come into the book at all, because at the time I am speaking of, she had just left number 17. This is from the picture book. Besides, there was Katie Nana, the nursemaid, who doesn't really count because at the time the east wind blew, she was leaving number 17. But wait, there's another one. Quote, Jane and Michael, though they were trying hard to be polite, just couldn't help doing what they did. They laughed. Unquote. Quote, Jane and Michael, though they were trying hard to be polite, just couldn't help doing what they did. They began to chuckle. Unquote. Methinks the author of this had read the original books. Overall, in the book she's very different in a lot of ways, but they also seem to be very small moments. She's rather different from what we'd expect from the Disney film, but at the same time she's a lot closer to the Disney version than most stories would have you believe. And reading the book you can really see what the guys at Disney took from it. The medicine's there down to the specific flavours. Mary Poppins and Michael's exchange about the carpet bag is exactly the same, and Spitspot's even in there. You can really see what Disney took from it. And on that note, let's talk about the Disney version, the original. She's vain in this version too. I mean, look at my t-shirt. It's exactly what it says on the tape measure. But she almost turns it in on itself. This is of course where the big famous practically perfect in every way line comes in. And of course I can't really get more specific than that because that's what happens when you make your notes 4 months in advance. She's very manipulative at times, mostly when she all but tricks Mr. Banks into taking the children to the bank. That is actually not a thing in the book, that never comes up in the book. Similarly, a lot of the time she seems to give you what you want, but she controls it. I think Chim Chim Cheree in Stepping Time is probably the prime example of this. The kids go shooting up the chimney and even though it's her day off, she follows them. And then, of course no thanks to Bert, they want to explore. And she lets them, but she's in charge the whole time. So she's always in control. You know, except when she's not. Like when she lets Jane and Michael go off unsupervised while she and Bert have their little date in the chalk pavement world. She seems happier and a lot more relaxed at that point particularly, which makes me wonder why on earth she's a nanny in the first place. The kids seem to just drag her down. And of course, as she says when she's talking to Mr. Banks, she's kind but extremely firm, and sometimes I almost think she's a mixture of both at the same time. I have here in my notes that that's most obvious during Spoonful of Sugar, but as I said, I made these notes in December, so I can't remember anything more. Good job me. She's not cruel the way she is in the book, but of course it's Disney, so they can't have her be that way. She has her completely shocked, offended moments when she really shouldn't be. Like when Bert and the penguins are talking about how amazing all these other women are, and she's at the top. And she knows she's at the top. She has to know. Of course, Disney's Mary Poppins also denies anything magical ever happened, though she's not quite as firm about it as she is in the book. But who knows? Maybe she is and Julie just masks it because she's so wonderful and brilliant. And of course, in that exact same scene, right after the chalk pavement adventure, she uses reverse psychology on the kids to get them to fall asleep. Of course she does. She's magic. And then, of course, there's that secret life of hers. At least according to Julie. I mentioned it in one of the other videos. But Julie's very adamant that Mary Poppins had some sort of secret life. Her reasoning, that being the colour of her petticoats, is totally because her husband did the costume design. But nevertheless, don't argue with Julie. This is another thing I imagine that could make P.L. Travers horrified. But again, she's not a robot. There's that scene at the very end where she's talking to the umbrella, who actually, fun fact, was voiced by David Tomlinson, who played Mr. Banks. Even though she says practically perfect people never permit sentiment to muddle their thinking, she's sentimental, even if she shuts the umbrella up. And obviously that's much bigger than that one single sentence that appears in the book. Now let's flash forward 54 years, because that's the perfect time to make a sequel, right? Mary Poppins Returns being the sequel to the Disney movie means she's very, very much the same. It's almost an extension of the 1964 Mary Poppins rather than it is an entirely new character, like the way that you could consider the 1964 one compared to the book. The Mary Poppins in Mary Poppins Returns, much more of an extension. She of course has the, like every other version, denying every magical thing ever happened. Though I found this to be a lot less obvious in this film. It didn't seem nearly as big. But then I guess she really only does it at the end of the bath scene. And they move on to the next scene where they're cleaning up so quickly that we just go so quickly that it doesn't seem as big as it is. But if that bit seems smaller than in the original, her vanity seems a bit bigger, like when she's looking in the mirror and saying how wonderful it is that she's here. I mean, come on. When the practically perfect in every way line pops up at the very end, she's looking at her reflection in the balloon. Julie's Mary Poppins was just looking at her height, which, if that is actually Julie's height, means Mary Poppins is 5'7", just like me. So I guess that means I'm practically perfect in every way height-wise. So the t-shirt is real. Anyway, like in the 1964 film and in the book, she accepts the job because she doesn't give anybody else a chance to talk and to stop her. And actually, that is one of my favourite things about Mary Poppins Returns. I loved that scene. I thought she was awesome there. And she's got her full shock, horror, offended moment when Michael says she hasn't aged at all. And she gives him that look. Because, again, he's not insulting her. She knows he's not insulting her, but oh dear. And of course, there's the tiny little moments where she's actually happy and she doesn't want to let it show. But she is, like when she's watching Jane and Jack together. Or when she's overhearing the kids talk after the place where lost things go. And there we go for Mary Poppins Returns. A lot less to talk about here because, as I said, she's pretty much an extension of the 1964 Mary Poppins. Because Disney. In summary, she's always completely full of herself and very vain. She always denies that anything magical happened at all. And she's always in control, but she lets you think you are. Disney's Mary Poppins is not nearly as cruel as P.L. Travis's version. But they're a lot closer than anything you hear about the making of Mary Poppins would have you believe, at least in my opinion. As far as ranking them goes, if I were to do that, which I've just now on the spot decided I will do, Julie wins. Julie wins completely. The book version's at the bottom, and, well, again, I want to put the musical in there, but I don't remember enough. So that means Mary Poppins Returns, smack bang in the middle. But I think I like Jack better than Bert, because Lynn's just too adorable. And that's everything I've got for you today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what you think of Mary Poppins. The book, the movie, the sequel, the character in general, whatever. Also, which is your favourite version? Thanks for watching, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my video next week. So long, farewell!